Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 3 of Movies That Matter. I'm your host, Chris Flaherty. Thank you for joining us. It's been a while since episode 3, but we're back in the studio because life finds a way. And I hope you know where that quote's from, because it has to do with the movie we're talking about tonight. My guest this evening is Nick Priest. He is a BHS Class graduate of 2003, and he is still in his first term on the Burlington Select Board, the board formerly known as Selectmen. Nick, how are you?
I'm doing good, Chris. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to have you in the studio tonight.
Thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah. So if you haven't gotten it from that opening reference, we're talking Jurassic Park. So, Nick, in your own words, can you tell us a little bit about what Jurassic Park is, for those that don't know?
For few someone
that
who's
don't
been
know.
living under a rock for 30 years.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park is a fantastic little film directed by Stephen Spielberg from 1993, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
Basically, the premise is, what would happen if somebody with an inordinate amount of money was capable of harnessing dinosaur DNA and creating dinosaurs and then building a theme park around it. And then more specifically, the movie centers around basically a test run of the park for a series of doctors and scientists who the not madman who created the park, but for the eccentric billionaire to see how well his park would fare. And for those who have seen it, spoiler warning, it does not go well.
It does not go well. Who would have guessed bringing dinosaurs back to the modern age would end in chaos?
What could possibly go wrong?
A lot, according to this film. Now, I was still an infant when this came out. How did you learn about it? Did you see trailers? Did you hear about it from a friend?
Yeah. So I was, you can do the math. If I graduated high school in 2003, right? I was born in 1985. So I'm an 80s, 90s baby. So when Jurassic Park came out in 93, I was, 7? And at that point, I had already seen, and I don't know if this goes to my parents or a lack of parenting on their part, but I'd already seen, things like Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Gremlins, E.T., right? And so this notion of, not monster movie, but creature features, I guess, was already kind of a staple in my brain. And then when the trailers came out, I remember seeing a trailer for it, and even like my parents were impressed, right? This was, the first time that anyone was trying to tackle such an endeavor in filmmaking, right? Before this, it was basically stop motion animation, right, and practical effects. And funny enough, that was the route that they were originally trying to go in, and we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were all excited about it, and I remember going to see it in the theaters when it came out, and it just for a 7-year-old's brain, it just melts right in, right?
Right.
It was just absolute movie magic.
Yeah. I wish I could have seen this one on the big screen just to see those dinosaurs when they first showed up. I don't know why I said it was infant when I came out. I'm not that much. There's not a big age gap here.
Yeah, no, you're like 5 years younger than me.
No, but you wouldn't bring a 2-year-old to see Jurassic Park.
True.
So
you wouldn't be able to enjoy it.
No, I would be cheering for it in the wrong ways.
Right. Exactly.
This is so great. Get me out of here. Not a lot of people know this. I know you and I know this. This is based off a book.
Yes.
Have you ever read the book?
I have. Yep. So Michael Crichton wrote the book, I believe, in 89, 91, or 90. So somewhere in that, late 80s, early 90s period. Michael Crichton, for those who don't know, Andromeda Strain, Some of All Fears, obviously the sequel to Jurassic Park: The Lost World, a bunch of great. He was truly a prolific writer, in my humble opinion. And it's after when I was old enough to go back and read the books, because they are pretty hefty books, and Michael Crichton had a doctorate, if I recall correctly. So he would go into some of not in depth, but some of the science behind some of the things that he was writing about. And later on in life, I found all that very, very interesting.
It's funny we were talking about it was the era of E.T. and Gremlins and like monster films and stuff. When I was watching it last night, I know obviously it's by Spielberg, and Spielberg also did Jaws, and I thought a lot about like it's got some similarities to Jaws in the way it approaches the dinosaurs, because if you notice, like opening act, you don't see the dinosaurs at all. Like it's building you up with suspense and stuff, and then finally, like when they get to the park, and then you see the dinosaurs, it's like it's the reveal. This is them. And then I was watching. I looked at the time code at like 45 minutes in, and I was like, I've only seen dinosaurs twice so far. Yeah,
it's actually really interesting that you mentioned that. So if I recall correctly, there I believe are only 20 minutes of dinosaurs on screen for the entirety of the film.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So it's got a near 2-hour runtime, and of that, 20 minutes are dinosaurs. And that was just something that, Spielberg, I think, adapted that out of necessity from Jaws, right? So I don't know if you know this fun story. You probably do.
Yeah.
Is that when he was making Jaws, the complications around
the mechanical shark
and the water were just so much so that he was like, well, you know what? We'll just constantly tease, reveal the shark,
right,
and we'll shoot around it.
Yep.
And I think that the success of that, the suspense, the anticipation, plays really well for the reveal of these dinosaurs.
Right, and then even like when revealing the shark, like you see like the water move and stuff, and then he almost does that same move with the cup on the Jeep, which is great. And like even like I forget, like sometimes like you see like parts of the dinosaurs, the practical effects. Like you never see the full thing, like the head going down to grab them and stuff.
Yep.
And I think is that the full time we see the T-Rex like in the rainstorm?
So the first time we see the T-Rex in full view is after he breaks out of her pen, because they're all female dinosaurs,
right?
But yeah, so that the first time she breaks out of her pen during the electrical storm is the first time we see her in full view, and that's a full body animatronic.
Yeah.
And again, you probably know all this, right? But we'll say it for the sake of the viewers, right?
Yeah.
Is they were shooting in the rain, and the dinosaur was actually getting weighed down because it was made of rubber and foam and all of these things that were absorbing the water, and it got too heavy that the hydraulic system that was a part of it couldn't move certain parts. It was constantly breaking down.
See, I didn't know that because I thought the rain was a way to disguise like the CGI at first, because you know how like if the CGI shot you like shoot your fight scene at night, so you can't really tell. That's what I thought was going on, but wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah, and he's got there's a nice mix of like CGI and practical throughout the film.
Yeah, so fun piece of trivia. They were going to do it as practical and stop motion. And they had brought on, I forget the guy's name, but he was the stop motion master. Like
Ray Harryhausen?
Yes, Ray Harryhausen, thank you. And so he and his crew were preparing weeks, burn the budget, making it all happen. And there was two guys, I believe, but mostly this one guy, I forget his name too. It's bad that I can't remember their names. Who was like, no, I can make this work. I can build these dinosaurs in CG. And so he was doing it like on the side, like off the books almost. And then when it came time for like, I think it was the producers to kind of like stroll through and see what folks were working on, he had like the T-Rex running in like on like a Z-plane.
Yeah.
So it was just the T-Rex with no actual background or footage or anything, just running, and they were like, "What's that?" And he was like, "Oh, this little thing."
This little dinosaur I made.
Yeah, and they were like, "Oh my god, that looks so real." And so they completely shifted, and they dumped budget into making it work, and that's why we have as much of the CGI in this film as we do.
Yeah. No, it's great, and the CGI still holds up, I think.
Yeah, it really does. I think it's it's a combination of how they shot it, right? I mean, you think about that first reveal, the brontosaurus as it rears up, and Alan Grant, pulls his glasses off in complete shock and awe. That shot is so short, and it's it's from a decent distance. It's framed in such a way that we allow it to blend into the background, and then when we see people interacting with the dinosaurs, they bring the practical effects. And I still think to this day, practical effects are a really solid choice for creature features, monster things. I mean, all sorts of things.
I was going to say, like practical effects, I think, give you more of an emotional response than CGI nowadays, because CGI is it's overused a lot, I think, and we're almost desensitized to it. Like at this point, like we know a dinosaur is not there.
Right.
But like early on, like they were like, you'd be like, wow, how did they do that? Like that's a full blown dinosaur. Like, is that stop motion? Is that practical? How did they do that? So I think that sort of gets your imagination going. I think that's why this film is sort of stood the test of time in some ways.
Yeah. And I mean, the film does what the park tried to do,
right?
Which is play into our want and desire of seeing something so magical,
right?
And I think that to your point, that's why it holds up so well, because it still carries that with it.
Yeah,
and I think that's true of a lot of films that we deem classic now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you watch E.T. and I mean, you're not like, wow, look at that scene. Look at that, practical E.T. puppet. Like he's really killing it.
He looks so good.
Yeah, it's so realistic, right? But you're so bought into it that it holds that classic, I guess piece of nostalgia at this point.
Yeah, no, it taps that universal fantasy I think we all have of like, what would it be like if dinosaurs were still around?
Yeah,
and I don't think there's anyone alive that's seen a dinosaur.
Not to my knowledge.
Or at least live to tell the tale. So it's I think it's something that everyone has thought about, and I think that's what resonates with a lot of audiences in that sense. On a personal note, like when you first watched it, what stuck out to you?
I mean, the sheer magic of it, right? I mean, as a kid, I loved dinosaurs. And I'm very fortunate to have a son who loves dinosaurs.
Amazing.
So I still love dinosaurs. But I mean, to the point where like I was like, I want to be a paleontologist when I grow up. And so I think, between that and, my parents' own awe of the trailer was kind of what got us to go see it. But I mean, like seeing the dinosaurs the first time when Alan and, Ellie see the dinosaurs is just as magical for the audience, for me,
right?
I think, as it was for them, as characters. They managed to put something on the screen that was just felt so real, and then became so visceral. Like I'll never forget the cafeteria sequence, when the raptors are attacking the grandkids, Tim and why can't I think of her name?
Lex.
Yeah. Thank you. And that whole sequence, and then when they get to Alan and Ellie and they get up into the ceiling and the raptor punches through, and I mean, it's funny because you can see it go from now, right? I mean, as a kid, I was just absorbed, right? But you can see it go from CGI to practical, right? But just like that whole sequence, just like really was, it had your adrenaline up, right? I mean, it was very much a heart pounding moment, right? It's like, oh my gosh, these 7 foot tall dinosaurs that are figuring out how to open doors and get around this space are going to kill these people.
Or like when she gets the power back on and she's like, we're back in business, and then the raptor comes through the wires behind her.
Oh my gosh, yeah, what a great jump scare.
It still freaks me out to this day. It's that, and it's the floating head out of the boat in Jaws that still get me after all these years. But it's like you're freaking out because, like, how did the raptor get back there?
Right.
And, like, was he just waiting for her to get happy for a second?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? So, I mean, it's funny how films will go so far as to, like, they immerse us in this, fantasy, and we suspend our disbelief for that time. But then, like, those little things stick out.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, well, where was he? Right. Like maybe he was eating Sam Jackson's character, right?
Right.
And he was like, oh, I hear someone, ha-haing. Let me see what's going on.
It's funny you bring up Sam Jackson's character because when, like, she grabs the arm, I'm just like, wait a minute, when did he get eaten? I was like, when did that happen?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, there are definite, plot holes like that, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain that they don't ever address his character going to the power station to turn the power back on.
I don't think so, because I had to look it up last night. I'm like, what happened to this character? Because I remember I was like, it's been a while since I watched it, since last night. But I was like, when she grabbed the arm, I'm like, is that the arm of the guy who says "clever girl"? Did I miss that part? Because that's my favorite part. And then that part happened after that, and I'm like, so whose arm was that?
Right.
So I had to go back.
Yeah.
And it was like, Sam Jackson, what happened to him?
And it's funny because, in terms of, obviously the movie, touches on it. And again, like they don't, it's nice. Like one thing that Spielberg does is that he doesn't dive into exposition.
Right.
Which is really nice. Like he tries to accomplish a lot through like one-liners, actionable things happening in a scene, around a scene. And so like, he references, early on that they're evacuating the island because of the storm, which is why there are not a whole lot of people running around screaming,
Right.
When everything goes down. But in the book, the cast is actually much larger.
Yeah.
And everything plays out differently, right? So Lex and Tim, in terms of age, are reversed. So Tim's actually older. The lawyer who was just the bloodsucker, for the body count.
Yeah.
That was just ditching the kids and trying to save his own rear end. Was actually one of like the heroes in the book.
Really?
Yeah. It's just like it's some things are night and day, but when you adapt something from a novel, right? There's obviously things that get changed. And it's interesting the things that Spielberg chose to change to bring this to life.
Yeah. I want to go back to your point about exposition, because I did want to touch on that part where they're in the sort of carousel of progress through the laboratory.
Yep.
And we get the full video explaining how dinosaurs get back, or they bring dinosaurs back. I thought that was really well researched, almost, for lack of better word, because I was like, all right, so they were not just saying like, hey, we got dinosaurs back through like mumbo jumbo. No, like here's actually how we did it.
Yeah, and I think part of that is due credit to Michael Crichton, for having that source material there, and then I think there's obviously the creative genius behind Spielberg that said, look, like if they're getting a tour, right, and this is a park for families, why wouldn't we capitalize on this Epcot style ride?
Yeah.
Where folks can sit down, but what I love is that they don't stay, right? Like,
right.
We're there long enough to get it, and then the scientists are like, no, we want to see that stop, right? And they literally like break the exposition,
Yep.
and they're like, we don't care about this. Take us to
Yeah.
the eggs. You want to see the dinosaurs.
No, it's hilarious, and it's a clever way to get your exposition out to your audience, I think.
Yeah.
It's a cute little animated short in the middle of the film.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, not to diverge drastically, but Mr. DNA has stuck around in the franchise, right? I mean, he's become so likable to our audiences that they've used him in the Jurassic World, even just as a little bit of an Easter egg.
I think I saw they just made a Funko Pop of Mr. DNA.
Did they?
And that is a really obscure Funko Pop, but I want it. I will put that on my shelf and be like, who is that?
Right.
Who that is? Get out.
How don't you know who Mr. DNA is?
I keep going back a little bit because we were talking about like how the harrowing experience of like chasing the dinosaurs, even though it was CGI and practical. I think a lot of that has to do with the actors in the film. Like they really knock it out of the park.
Yeah, they do a great job of selling it. I saw an interview with, I think it was Sam Neill, and he was talking about, when they did that first, Brontosaurus reveal, Brachiosaurus, whatever it is now.
Long neck.
Yeah.
Land before time terms.
Yeah, little foot all grown up.
Yeah.
And he was saying that he got like Spielberg off camera, like holding a stick, going here, look here, right? And you have to act like you're seeing a dinosaur for the first time, and I can only imagine what that's like. But you're right. I think that the acting, a film like Jurassic Park could have been one of the campiest things of the early '90s, and you're right. I think that the acting pushed it into what it's become.
Right. And that opening shot where they see the Longfoot and like the way he like takes his glasses off, or he like puts his head between his knees, like they're selling it and there's nothing there.
Right.
There's nothing there.
Literally.
And they're giving it their all.
Yep. He's looking at blue skies, you know.
Yeah. And like it's medium shots and close-ups of them looking off screen, and yet I believe they're looking at dinosaurs.
Absolutely.
And even Richard Attenborough and his eccentricities. And I spared no expense. I didn't realize how many times he actually said that in the movie.
So many times.
I was like, was that a mistake?
I actually I wonder, and I don't know this for sure, but I wonder if at a certain point, whether it was when they were writing it or rehearsing or shooting it, they said, you know what? Let's just have him say this all the time. Like, you know, he's stuck on this. Like, it's almost like, you know how like when something goes wrong, and you wind up like constantly like repeating something, but we double checked.
Yeah.
But we double checked. Right. And like that was almost his like nervous tick.
Right.
You know, through the entire film, it's like people are dying. The park is falling apart. His life's work.
Yeah.
Right. You know, is just crumbling, and his family is under threat.
Yeah.
You know, by it all, and he's just, but we spared no expense. We spared no expense. Well, you must have, because you must have spared some expense.
You should have paid Newman from Seinfeld a little bit more.
Oh, poor Wayne Knight.
Poor Wayne Knight.
Gets the short end of that stick.
Oh man, I think that's the most terrifying scene. I think he gets in his car and the
Dilophosaurus.
Yeah, which I never realized till last night, because they go through the tour and they can't find that dinosaur, and we're sort of thinking like, I'm thinking like, okay, the T-Rex must have ate it, but then it shows up with Wayne Knight, and I was like, oh, okay, so that's what that was building up to. Because I never realized it, like, when I was younger, he was just spitting mud at him. No, he's spitting poisonous venom at him.
Oh, yeah.
He's blinding him. That's much worse.
Well, I mean, and again, too, right? Like, they like, when you're watching the scene where they're, like, wondering where the Dilophosaurus is, and they're using the onboard, you know, like, nav tour guide, the tour guide is explaining, like, what the Dilophosaurus is, and Tim and Lex are, like, out the window, like, so eager to see this thing, right? Yeah. And they're like, where is it? And then I think that moment almost gets subverted by Jeff Goldblum in the security cam tapping it. And he's like, are there any dinosaurs on this dinosaur tour, John? You know, and he gets it's all sassy. Yeah. You know, but I mean, Jeff Goldblum is the voice of reason, you know. Truly, you know, just I mean, all around, I think, you know, the shrinking of the cast and, you know, condensing into good characters, and not good like good like they're good people, but you know, interesting characters, ones that we can really, you know, invest into. You know, really help sell it.
It's funny. I want to take a minute to talk about Jeff Goldblum, because it's Jeff Goldblum.
Love Jeff Goldblum.
So many wonderful lines are just brought to life by this man in this film. But it's funny, like, when he first shows up, he's got the black leather jacket on, he's got the sunglasses on, he's like trying to be like, you know, the suave guy, he's hitting on Dr. Sattler, and you think like he's the guy who's gonna be all for this, right? He's gonna be like, dinosaurs, cool, and you think Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler are gonna be like, no, this is wrong, this is immoral, and then they switch it around. He's the voice of reason, which I thought was just a really interesting bait and switch.
Yeah, it was, you know, and it was interesting in casting Jeff Goldblum too, right? Because up until that point, he hadn't necessarily played like cool roles,
right?
He'd always played like the offbeat scientist, or you know, so that here he is. He shows up, you know, wearing his sunglasses and, you know, his entire black wardrobe, and you're right, you don't expect it. You know, and he then here he is chastising, John Hammond's character, right? And he's like, all you know, the whole, you know, shouldn't couldn't line, right? And I mean, it's true, right? I mean, you know, I know earlier you had said, you know, like, what are some of the themes here, and like the first thing that comes to mind is the hubris of man,
right?
You know, we as a species have this innate desire to achieve, and we don't like being told, no, you can't do that.
Yeah,
we're like
true.
We're like petulant children, right? Thousands of years of, you know, just pure petulance, and this story captures that. So it's like a quintessential observation of the hubris of man.
Yeah.
And, our need to tinker with things. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't tinker, that we shouldn't, expand our understanding of science. But, I think that when you toy with such things as, in this case, deadly dinosaurs, you kind of get what you pay for.
It's a very cautionary tale of man versus nature, and life finds a way, and it's about trying to control nature when really you should respect it. And it's kind of scary because it's still resonating to this day, because I think there's a lot more John Hammonds running around throwing their money at interesting projects.
Yeah.
Be they spaceships or colonies on Mars. I won't name names.
No, of course. I mean, it's not like there's only 1% of them out there doing it.
No, of course not.
But I mean, to that end, right? I think that the Jurassic World franchise, the sequels, are really trying to grasp that in a very real sense, right? Because when you look at the films, almost taking Jurassic Park 3 out of the equation.
Jurassic Park 3?
Exactly. Because when you look at, Jurassic Park and Lost World side by side, right? The intent around the Lost World was an old man grasping at, preserving his legacy.
Right.
Through preserving the dinosaurs. Right. And he was trying to catalog that, and he was getting people to go back to the island to do that. And then that was coupled with, again, this need for man to conquer nature, right? Which forces, Jeff Goldblum's character to return.
Yep.
And then, you jump over that into Jurassic World, and they actually get the park up and running and make it something successful. But once again, right, the bigger, better, right, like people need to have, right? Like what's cooler than a dinosaur? A hybrid dinosaur. Yeah. Holy hell, people. Right, like talk about meddling with nature. Yeah. And then subsequently as dinosaurs are unleashed onto the mainland. Yeah. In a very real, uncontainable way. Life will find a way, right? Yeah. I mean, it was here. I mean, it's easy to look at the first Jurassic Park as a microcosm because the park failed, and then was abandoned. But there's so much more that came after it. That's just continues on those themes.
Yeah, World is very much like, I don't want to say like they didn't learn their lesson, but they didn't learn their lesson. They didn't learn their lesson, but
even if someone like I would argue that John Hammond learned his lesson.
John Hammond did,
right? But sure. But like you said, how many more John Hammonds are out there, right? Who haven't learned their lesson?
You have the new billionaire who is endorsing this park, and Bryce Dallas Howard, who was very much like, oh, we have dinosaurs, but we can make new ones now. Yeah. So it's very much like quit while you're ahead, right. Because a lot of people are going to get hurt, and then it get what is the second Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom. Yep. Where it's all like, now let's weaponize the dinosaurs, and then it almost goes in the same territory as Lost World, where they're released into the wild. Yep. So. I don't want to trash Jurassic World because I did like it, but I remember watching Jurassic Park last night. I'm like, this is very similar. Yeah. Like the kids get lost in the park. Yep. There's the guy who's like, no, don't do this. There's the scientist who's like, no, let's do it. Right. So
we could spend another hour talking about Jurassic World. I think that they succeeded in some areas, and then they did a cash nostalgia grab in others. Yeah. And they kind of sacrificed the story, I think, for some of that. But I think that they were trying to capitalize on the success and nostalgia of Jurassic Park because it was and is so iconic. Right. I mean, even if people don't remember every scene, they remember how that movie made them feel.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like we were saying earlier, experiencing the dinosaurs was a very real experience. And it's funny because some people probably obviously do remember this, but the movie opens in a completely different area, right? It opens, in a jungle.
Yep.
As
The attorney.
The attorney is showing up, right? And they're finding one of the amber encased mosquitoes, and then it pivots to the raptor attack, right? Where you don't see it, but you see how obviously ferocious it is, right? And then all of a sudden, right, we're in the middle of the Arizona desert, Nevada desert, right? Watching paleontologists, fuddle with technology.
Yeah.
Trying to explain to folks what they're looking for.
Right. And then, he's got the raptor claw and he's messing with the kid and stuff. And it's almost like, you should respect these guys because, like, you'll be alive when they're eating you.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, Dr. Grant, you don't know how right you are.
Right. I know. And I mean, again, like, to the credit of, the writing and the directing, right? They did such a good job of setting up how much of a not kid person Alan Grant is, right? And then he is saddled with saving and preserving two children, and being a father figure to them while they're,
Yeah. I never realized until like last night how big of a theme that is in the film, like responsibility to the next generation. And that includes not just the literal next generation, but also like the planet and stuff. Like, you're going to make dinosaurs and then leave these kids to fend for themselves?
Right,
like, okay.
Yeah.
Literally, it's what the attorney does. And
right,
Lex is like freaking out, like, he left us. And Dr. Grant's like, no, that's not what I'm going to do.
Right.
So he's very anti-child in the beginning of the movie. Like, he's terrorizing that kid. And by the way, I don't subscribe to the theory that that's young Chris Pratt.
No, I don't think so.
I was like, that looks nothing like him. I don't know.
Even if you wanted to take it, and say that, canonically, like, it is him. I mean, I don't think that it just doesn't add up.
No. I don't see like that kid going, I'm going to start learning about dinosaurs now. No, I see that kid going home like, Mom, this guy threatened me with a fossil.
Yeah, that kid's just an angry accountant somewhere. Just destroying scientists' lives.
But that's great setup because you see he's not good with kids. And then like they have the conversation. I'm like, oh, do you think you will have children? And he's like, no, they smell. And I'm like, that's literally what he says, folks. Yeah. He says they smell.
They smell.
And then he's thrust into this role where he has to take care of these children. And by the end of it, you see like he's ready to become possibly a father.
Yeah. And it's funny too, right? So, invoking Jurassic Park 3 for a moment, right? That's when they actually like do a callback to, Alan and Ellie's relationship, right? And it never works out for Alan,
right?
Fear of commitment and whatnot. But it's what I find most interesting about a lot of movies is that you can watch them at different times in your own life, and take away different things from them, right? Because I mean, like, my kids love Jurassic Park. Like,
I was going to ask you, have your kids seen Jurassic Park?
Yeah, so I subscribe to the same, lousy parenting. No, so it's of my belief that I can expose a 7 or 6 year old to something like Jurassic Park, and if they get freaked out, we can stop, right? Even if it's like one night of sleeping in my bed because they had a bad dream, like I'd rather them like not be afraid to experience, what is essentially not real, right, for their own enjoyment. And our son, Quentin, he loves dinosaurs, and so we sat down one night and we watched Jurassic Park, and they just felt like even the scary stuff, like they didn't like completely freak out over it, and they loved it. And we've since we haven't seen them in order, so like we've seen. I think they've watched the 2 Jurassic World ones. Okay. They haven't seen the Lost World yet. But they're just absolutely captivated by this stuff. And they're watching it for the sheer entertainment value, right? They're seeing dinosaurs, jump around and screech and scream, and Oh, how cool, right? And then, like I'm over here going, oh my God, the world's falling apart. And am I a good father?
But it must give you like a new perspective on the movie, seeing it through the lens of your kids.
Oh my gosh, yeah. When we watch movies, I spend half the time watching them watch the movie.
Right.
Because like seeing their faces as they experience things like that. I mean, anything really, it doesn't have to be a movie. But as they're experiencing life for the first time, and having those moments, watching them is pure joy, and it's, I mean, when you have those own memories and feelings of things that gave you joy, even if it's not the same things that your kids find joy in, you recognize that expression on their face, and it makes you feel good, that they are having those experiences too.
And you must take a new perspective away from it too, because you're seeing a man who is becoming a father in this film, metaphorically, and you yourself are a father. Yeah,
for sure. It's completely different, being in your late 30s and watching it than it is when you're 12, right? And being a father. I mean, now that I'm a parent, it's amazing the things that like get me now, right? That you wouldn't that I wouldn't have been as emotional about prior, and now I'm like, oh man, like that's right in the feels. Come on.
No, I definitely feel that, like going back to a film like after like a certain amount of time, and then you're just like, why is this part hitting me?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like, this never hit me before. Why?
Don't do this to me.
It's like looking at my hands, like, what's happening to
me?
Yeah. So we talked all about like important themes in the film and stuff. What are some of your favorite parts?
Gosh, I mean, there are literally so many. I mean, the amount of fantastic dialogue alone, like I said, I love the cafeteria chase scene. Yeah. I love it because it shows both the dinosaurs' ingenuity and the kids' ingenuity. Both with Tim trapping the raptor in the freezer, and with Lex and the reflection on the metal cabinet.
Yes,
two super cool things. I love like the like as we're building anticipation towards seeing the dinosaurs, right?
Yeah.
The like almost like semi uncomfortable moments that they force us to experience with the scientists, right? So like they're like lowering the cow down to the raptor pen, and they're like, "What are you doing?"
A low key disturbing scene.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
There's an extreme close up on that cow's face, and it's just like, why, Stephen?
Yeah. Why so close to the cow?
That's what are you trying to do to me?
Yeah. And you've got the game warden there explaining how often they got to feed him, and how they test the pen, for the electricity, what else? I mean, I'm trying to think. There are literally like so many just good moments, Wayne Knight. Yelling.
Yeah, Dodson.
Dodson. We got Dodson here. Because, little things like that like allow you to like experience like moments of levity before the story comes pulling back down.
Right.
Are just great. The Gallimimus, with the T-Rex coming through. They do move in herds. Just like great stuff like that. When the Jeep goes over the ledge, it's fantastic. Although there's another, great, almost like continuity disturbance, right? So moments before the T-Rex comes over that wall, and out onto the path, right?
Yep.
And then pushes the Jeep down a 40-foot incline.
Yep.
And it's like, where'd that come from?
How did he get up there?
Yeah, or like where, like, was he on? Was she? I mean, he's saying he, but she was she on like some other like higher elevated plane? Like,
well, she might be a he because we established that the frog DNA allows them to change.
That is true.
So
that is true.
We'll cover ourselves with that one.
That's fair.
Yeah,
yeah, we can buy that.
Yeah, and maybe if it's frog DNA, maybe he hopped up.
That is a stretch, but I'll buy it for $1.
Okay. We solved Jurassic Park, folks.
There it is.
The one continuity issue.
That's right.
We solved it.
It's only taken 30 years, but we did it.
I do like the T-Rex's final shot in the movie when he's roaring in the observatory, and then perfect timing, the when dinosaurs roam the earth.
Yeah,
banner.
beautifully framed.
Yeah.
And it's funny how I don't think it was ever well, it was probably intentional because they did it that way, but in terms of like the intent of the T-Rex, it was never the T-Rex's intent to save them.
Right.
Right. And I think that as humans, we view it that way because we want to see our protagonists survive.
Yeah.
But here we are again, like applying our own humanity to nature, and it's like, well, there's just a series of fortunate events,
right?
That you happen to be in the same place as the T-Rex, who was threatened by the Raptors. The Raptors were threatened by the T-Rex. They get into a fight, and you had a chance to escape.
Yep.
No,
it's not like the T-Rex is coming to save them.
Right.
Literally. Yeah, because the T-Rex was trying to kill them. It's not like, and not to despair Jurassic World, it's the T-Rex does come to save them.
Yeah, which, I mean, that's a point that we could disparage Jurassic World on, because that was a little bizarre.
Yeah.
It's like, you really mean to tell me that Bryce Dallas Howard
can run in heels?
Well, I mean, I'm sure.
Well,
let's assume she can.
All right. I'm sorry, Bryce.
Bryce, if you're listening. But that she's going to run from that paddock to the main thoroughfare and have the T-Rex casually walk after her?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I doubt that the T-Rex's paddock is casually stationed outside of the main thoroughfare. So it's got to be a decent clip away.
Yeah.
And she just runs off, gets the T-Rex, and brings her back.
Yep. Also, in a moment of panic, how do you get to that conclusion? Like, I'm going to go get the T-Rex.
Right. Yeah. And again, they tried to pull it was almost like an M. Night Shyamalan moment. Yeah. Where the kid, goes Rain Man for a minute. He's like, we need more teeth. He's like counting all the teeth. He's like, we need more teeth.
Yeah.
And somehow that triggers her, right? It was like a swing away Meryl moment in Signs.
It's so true.
And it's like, I feel like we're kind of jumping the gun here. Like you're just kind of, and it was moments like that, I think, within the Jurassic World franchise that make it less as, classic as the first two were. Because I would argue that the Lost World is just as successful as Jurassic Park was, just in a slightly different way.
I almost think like Jurassic Park, I mean, it's too late now, but I almost feel like it's a nice self-contained film that didn't need a franchise. Almost. I find, and going back to our favorite parts, that line when he's running out, when Dr. Grant is running out, and he's like, after much careful consideration, I've decided to not endorse your park. And he's like, so would I.
Yes, so
I was like, that's perfect. Just end the film right there.
You're absolutely right. Jurassic Park could very well be a standalone film, and I think the only reason that The Lost World exists is because Michael Crichton had written a second book.
That's true. He did write the second book.
And the success of Jurassic Park, the studio was like, hey, like the first one made so much money, why wouldn't we make a second one?
Yeah.
After that, though, with no new source material, right? Because Michael Crichton had passed away at that point. It was just a money grab.
Yeah.
And it flopped tremendously. Jurassic Park 3 was just atrocious on so many levels.
Was it William H. Macy and Tia Leone?
Yep.
Their son is lost.
Yep. So they're a divorced couple, and the stepfather takes the son parasailing, not parasailing,
hang gliding,
like
or something.
Gliding,
yeah.
And for some reason they had to do this off the coast of Costa Rica, which is off the coast of these islands.
Yep.
And despite multiple warnings from locals, he's like, "No, it's fine. You can bring us closer to the island." Not sure why. At which point they're attacked and they land on the island. But I mean, Jurassic Park 3 is almost like a low budget redo of Lost World.
Yeah.
Right? Because you've got people there for one reason. You've got, mercenaries, hunters there for another reason. And everything plays out, more or less the same
way.
Yeah.
We're not saying don't watch the other films, folks, but...
Well, I am saying don't watch. I mean, from me, do not watch Jurassic Park 3. I mean, I love Sam Neill, but it's just a bizarre movie.
It is. When you hear the plot, it's almost like a episode of a Jurassic Park procedural, almost like, oh, my kid got lost on the island. Can you go get him? And then it's like in the criminal justice system.
I mean, now there's something that Dick Wolf hasn't done, right? Law and Order Jurassic Park.
Law and Order Jurassic Park.
Law and Order Dinosaur Edition,
You know what? I think it's time to breathe some fresh life in the Law and Order franchise. So
call Mariska Haggerty. We have a new one.
I do love Law and Order, though, so I can't say that too much.
Well, who doesn't love a good procedural? You name one procedural doctor show, right? And anything that follows that format, and people are going to watch it. That's why we have like 4 doctor shows on TV right now.
Yeah, that's why we have like 3. We've had like 18 Law and Orders.
Oh my God, yeah.
And then we have all the Chicagos.
Right, all the Chicago
PD,
Med,
Chicago Fire, Chicago Med. There was a Chicago Justice, I think.
Why not?
Yeah, we're getting off topic.
Buckle in, folks. This is a 3-hour episode.
Now we're talking about why Law and Order matters on TV shows that matter. I'll get back to Jurassic Park for a second. Nick, what do you think allows... We've touched on this a few times tonight, but what do you think allows audiences to connect with Jurassic Park as we approach the end of our evening?
Yeah, it's that magic and wonder. I think is the real big thing, and I think that coupled with the way Spielberg built anticipation for the dinosaurs, right? Because here you were as a moviegoer, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to see a movie about dinosaurs. And I saw the trailer, and they teased them, and it looked so good. Like I saw the eye, and that looked amazing, right? And like you build yourself up for this thing, and then like you said, you're sitting there in the seat for like 45 minutes, nary a single dinosaur on screen.
Get you antsy.
Right? Yeah, you've heard the screeching, you've seen someone get killed. You're seeing dinosaur bones, in the desert. Like it's building, and then that moment comes, and that wonder is there, and then from that moment on, you are on a roller coaster ride,
right?
Because I mean, in terms of like beats, in terms of the pace of that movie, right? Like once you see those dinosaurs, you are moving. There are only maybe like 3 true break points where it's like heavy dialogue, right?
Yeah.
Where they're having lunch in that bizarre projector room.
Yeah.
Which just bizarre.
Okay. Let's eat behind this projector.
When Hammond goes into all the exposition, the flea circus and everything, he's talking to Ellie. And there's at least one more scene that is escaping me that's like calm.
Is it when they're in the tree?
The tree.
Yeah.
Yep. And he's telling the joke.
Yeah.
Do
you think he saw us, Rex?
Yeah. Do you think he saw us, Rex?
Yeah.
What do you call a blind dinosaur's dog? Do you think he saw us? Oh, do you think he saw us, Rex?
Is
the dog bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's a ride. It's incredibly well paced, and like you said, it keeps you in your seat.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
I think Spielberg learned a lot from Jaws and brought it to Jurassic Park.
Yeah, without question.
Yeah.
Without question. I mean, look at, preceding Jurassic Park, right? Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T., and, I mean, he was obviously helping out on Star Wars.
Yep.
So he's building toward, this, having this, this resume full of, practical effects, creature feature-esque, man versus style, movies. and then Jurassic Park, hits, and it's just he was truly the perfect man for the job.
Yeah,
Sure. And it just I'm very happy that it's stood the test of time. Because if it hadn't, it would just be, to me, like a cult classic.
Yeah.
Because I was in love with it as a kid, and that hadn't changed. But the fact that the world was like, oh my gosh, yeah, it captured that wonder, for all of us, and it did it amazingly. And I honestly wonder if it was if there were stop motion bits, if it wasn't. If we hadn't incorporated CG, would it have held as much? Would it have felt too much like one of those creature features from the 50s? Would we have bought into it as easily, or would it have become this weird, cult, classic? Because again, and you got to think about the time, right? We're a solid 10 years out from the last Star Wars film, right? Everything to this point has basically been done with either lowbrow CG and computer effects or practical effects, right? Either with John Carpenter's The Thing, right? And if the dinosaurs looked like the Sarlacc in the Sarlacc pit, would we have bought into it in '93? And I don't know if we would have.
I don't know, because no disrespect to Harryhausen, it's Ray Harryhausen. His stop motion was phenomenal, but it's definitely you can tell it's not. It's sort of out of place now when you watch it. Like the original Clash of the Titans film. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Yep.
It's a fun little, that's a cult classic.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I think it's just, like you said, what could have gone wrong, and I don't think anything went wrong. It's obviously we're here talking about it.
Right.
It's sort of like the perfect storm. They chose the right effects, they chose the right characters, they had the right script, and here we are talking about a film that is widely considered a classic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you were to sell this film to someone who had never seen it before, what would you say to them to say, hey, this film matters, you should watch it?
Oh, man. I would say that, it's an amazing example of a 21st century creature feature. And it is, from a technological perspective, a true feat, that changed how film was done. It opened the doors for so many other, computer-generated things to begin to come to life. That this is truly a pivotal, film that we talk about because of how, through its technology, it crafted such magic for the audience. And tell me you don't like dinosaurs.
I'm sorry, who doesn't like dinosaurs?
There might be somebody out there, but
they're not my friend.
I'm a big fan of dinosaurs.
Yeah,
love them.
And I love that you're passing that on to your son and that you're watching these films with him. I think that's great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I highly encourage folks to, find those moments and, share it. Even if you don't have kids, or, just share it. I have a friend who, she just never sees movies, and I am an avid movie guy, and I always am dropping random references, and she looks at me like I have 8 heads, and I'm like, what? I'm like, that's from City Slickers or whatever, and she's like, what? And I'm like, how have you never seen that?
I know. My girlfriend's got gaps in her video library that I'm working on.
Yeah.
We're going through the original Star Wars trilogy right now.
There you go.
Yeah, and now we're going to be Han Solo and Chewbacca for Halloween.
Nice.
Yeah. Not Han Solo and Leia. Han Solo and Chewbacca.
Are you Chewbacca?
No, I'm Han Solo. She just wants to. She wants to wear a Chewbacca onesie.
Oh, all right. Well, hey, comfort.
Yeah,
you know?
that's what it's
a
about.
big thing.
She wants to celebrate Halloween, but she wants to be comfortable.
I get that.
And I can admire and respect that.
I was going to say, I absolutely respect that.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like, you love these movies, and you want to be able to share these movies with the people you love.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
My wife refuses to let me show the kids Alien.
Well,
so we're working our way to that.
I'm going to have to agree with Jen on that one. I think you got to wait a while, pal.
Yeah. Well, again, you know, I forget how old I was when I saw Alien, but those facehuggers, man, they still scare the crap out of me. I don't care who you are.
I think I could top you there. My cousin showed me Point Break when I was like 9.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. My parents were like walking up the hall and they're like, cover your eyes. And I'm like, yeah. So, well, that's out in the open now,
right?
On the airwaves.
That's for the world to hear.
Yep. I just threw all of my cousins under the bus. I'm never getting invited to another wedding.
Hey, well, I mean, you know, think of all the money you'll save.
That's true. And that's a great note to end on. Nick, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for having me. Yeah. It's a blast.
I hope you'll come back. I know you will. You gave me a full list of movies.
Yeah, I mean, I just name a movie. I can sit here for an hour talking about it.
Perfect. All right, Alien. Right now.
Right now. We'll see you in another hour, folks.
Oh, this is great. Nick, thanks again for coming in. Folks, this has been Movies That Matter. I've been your host, Chris Flaherty. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Movies That Matter Pod. As always, don't always listen to the critics. Don't always listen to the audiences. Watch what you like. Form your own opinions. Have a good night.